Tandem Nomads, episode 299. So much is happening in Tandem Nomads world, but also in the industry of online entrepreneurs. And as we soon reach the milestone of 300 episodes and 8 years since the first episode was launched, we have a lot to think about and to reflect on together. But also, I have a huge announcement for you in this podcast episode about some major changes that are happening in Tandem Nomads world. Welcome to Tandem Nomads, the podcast show and entrepreneurship platform where you can find great inspiration and resources to grow a successful portable business that is aligned with your lifestyle and your need. This is your host, Emel Deregi. I'm a business and marketing coach and the founder of Tandem Nomads. Oh mine. So this is going to be a pretty important episode and I will be making an important announcement. And I'm feeling a little bit nervous here, but it's all good stuff. Don't you worry. It's all great things happening. So this episode is aired a couple of weeks before Tandem Nomads turns 8, and I will be celebrating with you the milestone of the 300 episode, as it will be the next one. So a lot to celebrate, reflect on. But first of all, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for those of you who have been listening to this podcast for a long time, for having been part of this journey. I have more to share about that, but I just want to put it out there because all of that would have not been possible without you. And there is something big that's happening, which is, are you ready for this? Are you really ready for this? So, Tandem Nomads podcast show will be changing names as well as the business. And I will not be revealing the new name yet, but I want to share with you the thoughts and the reasons, the process that I've been through to get to the idea, but most importantly, the huge decision to change the name and the brand under which I run this podcast as well as my business. Oh my God, this was not a light decision to take. It was a pretty major process for me, but it is time. It is definitely about time. It's been a while now that I've been considering this, and I just felt like this was the moment to do it. Just to reassure you, deep into the core of the DNA of Tandem Nomads and who I am and what I do, there will be not much changes. Most of the changes will be from the outside. However, there are some major shifts, even if technically, not all things will be changing. I think in a symbolic way, there will be some major changes. But deep inside, and especially for you listeners, I think, I don't want to say it's going to be a cosmetic change because it's much more than that. But the reason why Tandem Nomads needs to change its name is because it has evolved already so much. So there won't be a lot of changes from the inside because those changes already happened and I've already been implementing them through the podcast, through my work with my clients for a couple of years now. I just felt like the outside was not fitting the inside anymore of what was going on in Tandem Nomads world and in the Tandem Nomads community. So for that reason, I decided to take this scary but also very exciting step of renaming this podcast as well as the business that I run to support my clients. So, as I said, I will not be sharing the name, but what I want to share with you in this episode is the exterior changes that happened in Tandem Nomads world, but also in our industry and in our world, most importantly, that affected somehow my business and this podcast and how I show up and the reason why I want to change the name And hopefully you'll also be able to understand all the reasons that made me change this name and would want to continue this adventure together. So as I said, in this episode, I'm going to focus on the exterior elements that made the change. And in the next episode, I'll talk to you more about the interior and more intimate reasons that got me to change this reason. They're more personal, but before the personal aspect, there are some very factual things that are happening in our market, in our world as entrepreneurs that we need to pay attention to. So although I am going to share with you my journey and the reasons why I'm changing the name, I do think that these big reasons of what has changed in the past 8 years in our industry might also be interesting to you in what you do and how you run your business. So I'm going to dive right to it and share with you the first big thing that has changed in the past 8 years since I started Tandem Nomads. Before I get into it, I might need to give you a little bit of context and background story of how this whole thing started, Tandem Nomads. And I know that many of you have been hopping on this journey maybe a couple years ago, but also I know that many of you have been listening to this podcast since the beginning. So bear with me if you already know this, but Tandem Nomads, I started it 8 years ago with the goal to help a very specific niche, which is the expat spouses, women who give up their careers, particularly. Thankfully, there's more and more men, which leads also to some of the changes we've seen, which is great. Women and men and all genders who are giving up their careers to live on the move for their partner's jobs. And I've been in that situation. I'm actually still in that situation where I have to move from a country to another. I want to. I do it gladly, but that's just part of my life, like to move from a country to another wherever my husband's job takes us. Thankfully, I have my business that I can take with me, but many years ago, over 13 years ago, it was not the case. I gave up my career. I started my business to be able to keep living on the move with my husband. And 7 years after that, I realized that I wish there were more expat partners like me to whom I could talk to, but also that I could help to think about entrepreneurship as the solution to their career challenges on the move. So in a nutshell, this is how Tandem Nomads started. And since then, oh wow, it's been an amazing ride, an amazing adventure, and so many things have evolved. And this first thing that has evolved is the global mobility industry, and particularly how it affects work and expat spouses' dual career challenges. So here's the thing. When I started Tandem Nomads, I had two big missions behind it. The first one, as I said before, was to share this big message that I had, which was on using entrepreneurship as the solution to dual career challenges, like bringing entrepreneurship as the light, the hope, and the path for spouses who felt stuck, who felt lost, who felt depressed even for having lost their career, their identity, their source of fulfillment, and most importantly, their source of financial independence. For me, entrepreneurship was the solution because at the time, it was so much harder to get a remote job, which is related to some of the changes that are happening, right? But that was the first mission, entrepreneurship as the solution for expat spouses. That was the first mission. And the second mission was to advocate. That was beyond just the business model and how I make money, but just a personal mission I gave to myself, which was to advocate for all the regulators and the experts in the field to understand the challenges we were going through as expat spouses, because there were some elements that honestly would actually affect our human rights in terms of regulations, visas, work permits, etc. So I really made it my mission to educate and advocate to change the regulations. I did not have access to all the regulators, but I knew that by having a podcast, by having a platform, by having opportunities to speak, I'll be able to also spread the word and ask the people around me to spread the word, to take action, and ask to the people who can to find a way to make a difference and change certain regulations. So these were the two big missions that I had. And I cannot tell you how excited, joyful, hopeful, impressed, and happy and satisfied even I am to see how things have evolved in the past 8 years. I'm not saying that they evolved because of me, but I know that I've played a role in this along the side of many other peers of mine in the field of the topics of dual career challenges. And one of them, you might have heard me talk about this in the podcast, one of the platforms that I'm deeply grateful for, and which is the Families in Global Transitions, which is an organization focused on the challenges of families in global transitions, including expat spouses challenges. And I have to give a big shout out to the founder of this organization, the co-founder, Ruth Van Ricken. So along the side with FIGT, which is the short name for it, my work and the work of other peers in the field, I think we've done a tremendous job at bringing awareness around these challenges and getting things to change, getting things to get easier. There's more and more countries that are facilitating the processes for expat spouses. And bear me here because I know there's still a lot of work to do. So I'm not saying we won. I'm not saying it's over, but I could see how things are getting easier. And going back to the first mission, which was introducing entrepreneurship, when I started, most of the people who come to me were telling me, oh my God, I cannot be an entrepreneur. I don't see myself as an entrepreneur. I will never be able to start a business. So that was the common answer I would get, along the side with other criticism, which I'm not going to spend time on. But I did get attacked a lot when I started Tandem Nomads for telling me, how dare you? How dare you ask two women to have to work? I was like, this is not what I'm doing here. This has nothing to do with not acknowledging that some women don't want to work and want to stay at home and take care of their families. That's amazing. I actually think being a parent is the most important job in the world. But how about those who want to work, those who care about it? And how about all the implications, the financial vulnerability, that an administrative vulnerability around the fact of being dependent on a spouse? And although entrepreneurship was my solution, I would also talk about the other things. For example, being able to know our rights, bringing on lawyers on the podcast to educate ourselves on how to make sure that we have our financial backup and our legal backup to make sure that if, God forbid, there's a divorce or something goes wrong, that the spouses are protected as well as their kids and their families. So, all right. So this was the challenges and the conversations that were coming up when I started Tandem Nomads. But very soon, and I can't tell you how happy and excited I am to see that the number of spouses who actually started their businesses since is insane. I actually know more expat partners now that have a business than those who don't. So I think this is a huge win. Again, I don't affect it directly just to myself. I know that this is a systemic shift that happened through all the conversations that all the players in this industry were having. But I'm really proud to have contributed to it. I have to say it. And I'm so excited to see that this is becoming normal. What is not yet completely normal or completely achieved in this field is having a business that is actually profitable and actually makes real revenue. So I think this is something where we still have to make progress on, and something that the new name and the new business will be addressing as well. But it's already a huge first step that so many are already launching their businesses, working on it, and getting to make their financial independence, but also their commitment to their business and their own needs a priority, which is one of the biggest messages of Tandem Nomads, making ourselves a priority. But also one of the things that has influenced the name Tandem Nomads is the idea of being a team as an expat couple, being a team moving from a country to another, and one cannot work with the other. So this is another big component that for me was also at the center of the philosophy behind Tandem Nomads. So this is the first big shift. As I said, the global mobility industry, more specifically, the challenges around dual career challenges for expat partners have become easier. First of all, because more and more expat partners are giving themselves the chance to start their business and allowing themselves to actually dream big and do it. And the second thing is that regulations have become easier, although there are some places where things actually have gone backwards. However, there's more and more experts who are actually working on it, which at the time were not there. Experts in fields that are not mine in terms of professional expertise, such as law, taxation, and all of that. My job was to only bring awareness, but in no way I was here to provide that kind of consulting or support. The expertise that I was bringing on the table was how to design a business model that is portable and location independent. And that's still what I do. Although that area of portability, and you will see later, I still do the same thing, but for a much broader goal. Which leads me to the second big thing that changed in our market, but also in our world. That is one of the reasons why I'm making this big shift. And that is the fact that the work culture and the work environment has changed thanks to the introduction of the remote work after the pandemic. In fact, as soon as even the first lockdown happened, I started having requests and conversations with people who were outside of the expat field and the global nomads community, who were interested in how to use the time that they had during the lockdown to actually start their businesses, but also work remotely. How does that actually work to be able to work remotely? So the first questions were pretty basic, but as we got more and more accustomed to the technologies, which in the Tandem Nomads community we were using since many years, that suddenly are open to the broad public. For instance, I remember that I was one of the first beta testers of Zoom. I remember like today when I had my onboarding call with a human being, an employee of Zoom, to help me onboard onto the platform. So there were a lot of demands at the beginning outside of the expat field, as I said, but also as we started moving on from the pandemic itself and the society has evolved and the companies were starting to restructure their definition of what work should look like and what does it mean to work hybrid, to work offline, to work online. And there's another thing that showed up as we moved forward in this couple of years is this need of more and more people to not only work remotely, but to actually do something that is meaningful to them. And that is when I started seeing more and more people coming to me who were interested in building a portable business and turning their expertise into a source of revenue, but also a source of impact. And that was really interesting because not a lot of them necessarily identified as tandem nomads. And the more we evolved, the more we grew in the past couple of years, the bigger of a portion of my clients are actually not necessarily expats. However, they have one thing in common, no matter if they're expats or not. They are globally minded. I call them the cosmopolitans. They have lived a life, not necessarily on the move, but they have a very diverse background, or they're seeking for that diversity. So it's been a very interesting evolution of my audience, of amazing people who have been expats or not anymore, or those who are expats but not necessarily identify as so, or those who've never been expats but are really interested in the global aspect, the being a global citizen. At the end of the day, this is what is the common thing between all the people that come to work with me, but that don't necessarily identify with the term tandem nomads, even when they come to me to build a portable business that gives them the freedom to live on the move and travel. Especially, as I said, one of the key things behind Tandem Nomads was this expat couples dual career challenges. That is not necessarily what is representing the common needs of my current audience that has evolved so much. And within my original audience of expat spouses, our conversations are so much more focused on entrepreneurship, business, marketing strategies, etc., more than the fact of being an expat spouse. So this is one of the things that has also led me to hesitate, but to decide that it is time to change that name so that I could also represent all of you who are listening to this podcast, knowing that I'm still serving a lot of expat spouses, and this community still means a lot to me, and I'm still going to, in a way or another, keep the Tandem Nomads mission part of my business, and even maybe keep the brand Tandem Nomads for topics specifically related to expat spouses challenges. However, what I do helps more people than just expat spouses. The idea of building a business that is, number one, portable, number two, that is aligned with our specific zone of genius, that allows us to be visible and to make an impact in the areas that matter to us, is something that's common to the expat partners I've been working with for many years, as well as the new clients that I've been attracting over the years. But also, one of the things, if you paid attention to Tandem Nomads podcast, has evolved in the introduction itself. I used to say Tandem Nomads is the place to grow a portable business that allows you to live on the move, to talking more and more about the key word here, which is alignment. That is the biggest mission of what I do, is to make sure that whatever business we decide to take on or to grow is aligned with our needs and with our life and the impact we want to make in the world, especially for women who often felt that they needed to choose between their career and taking care of their loved ones. When, in fact, when we have a business that is aligned with our needs, we don't have to make that hard choice. We can make ourselves a priority while aligning all our priorities. And this is something that has attracted people no matter if they live on the move or not. A portable business can allow to be aligned when we need to live on the move, but in certain cases, it's about taking care of our loved ones, our aging parents, or simply having time for our hobbies, or having time to write a book, having the time to do the things that matter to us, but also to take care of our well-being and mental health. This is another topic that came up a lot on Tandem Nomads podcast, mental health and alignment. And I've been sharing my own journey with the topic of alignment. I had to change my own business model and marketing strategies when my father was sick and I was not able to run my business the same way as I did 7 years ago. And I've had many episodes where I shared my own journey of turning my business model around so that I can be more present for my family, which had nothing to do necessarily with living on the move. So again, while I still work with a lot of expat partners, I've actually started attracting more and more, particularly women who are from a certain leadership position. They actually have a fully fledged career, but they want to leave their positions to start their businesses. So often they come to me shortly before they leave their job to start their business, or they already have a business, but it's not aligned with their needs, either through their business model or their marketing strategies. They are a little bit scattered and not necessarily serving their bigger goal and vision. And that has been a very interesting evolution that I've really enjoyed witnessing and supporting, along the side of working with expat spouses who wanted to continue to have their own source of revenue and fulfillment while living on the move. And that's why I felt it was about time to change the name so that I could also welcome and make this broader community feel as well welcome into my world, and especially into this podcast show that I hope will continue to provide you with all the resources and inspiration that you need in your journey, no matter if you're an expat partner or not. But there is a huge common thing on top of the business itself and the keyword of alignment that all my audience is looking for, which is this cosmopolitan identity that I mentioned before, and this feeling of being global citizen that's really important. But also something related to my third point of what has shifted in the market, and most importantly, what has shifted in the past years of doing business that I observed as an entrepreneur. In fact, my third reason is that our global economy has tremendously changed since the year 2015, where I started this podcast, but also the global state of affairs. We've entered an era of economic recession, but also of a deep global identity crisis, where I believe as entrepreneurs we need to take action, we need to show up, and we need to know how to show up. And as an entrepreneur, since the pandemic, I would say, the number of time I needed as an entrepreneur, as a leader, to pivot, to speak up, to show up has just been endless. And I also helped my clients be able to respond to whatever has happening in their market, in their industry, but also in our world. And I think this is one thing that's truly important for me to know as an entrepreneur, how to react to the challenges we're faced with. And there's a reason why I always end it. We have more than 300 episodes in Tandem Nomads. I have not numbered all of them. We will celebrate the number 300 in the next episode. But I've never missed the single chance to finish every single episode since the first one with this quote: turning your challenges into opportunities. And this is something that's at the core of what I do, at the core of my DNA, no matter what's going to be the name of my podcast or my business. So turning challenges into opportunities is one of the core values that I believe in. Into opportunities to make an impact. And this is the thing that is so common to my clients and my audience, and I guess to you who are listening here. I have not had a single client so far who has not come to me saying, I want to use my expertise to make a difference. Whether it's in education, whether it's in mental health, whether it's in employment retention or in sustainability and climate change, but also in helping people be able to communicate better, to understand each other better, so that we can live in a better world. And this is something that I'm truly passionate about. I feel so honored to get to work with people who are so focused on not only making themselves a priority, but the key driver to making themselves a priority while supporting their loved ones and their well-being is to actually make a difference in the world. And in the times where we live right now, we need to show up as entrepreneurs to make a difference. It doesn't have to be directly linked to all the big issues in the world, but being proactive of how we show up as a leader is so important. And this is why I also decided to change the name of this podcast so that I could feel a bit more free, a little bit less stuck into this framework of Tandem Nomad, to be able to talk about the topics that all of us are passionate about, which is making a difference, which is building a business that is aligned with who we truly are as individuals, as entrepreneurs, but also aligned with the impact we want to make in the world. I want to make that impact as well, and I feel that by changing the name, I'll be able to also bring more topics that can help us all grow into our role as entrepreneurs, beyond just the marketing, beyond just the portable business aspect, but also all the other aspects, starting with mindset, but also financial literacy, education, technology, innovation, leadership, as well as all the topics related to understanding where are we right now in our market, in our world, in our industry, so that we can show up as more empowered entrepreneurs and change makers. So yes, our world has changed. Our industry as online entrepreneurs has changed as well. In this episode, I shared with you the big shifts that I've noticed in the Tandem Nomads world, but also in our industry, in our world. And I truly believe that staying static is not the way to show up as an entrepreneur. We need to listen. We need to be careful what's happening around us and react to it proactively. And changing the name is my way to react to it so that I can show up in a better way and hopefully bring you even better resources and inspiration to help you in your journey. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. That is a very, very important episode for me. So I appreciate you've been listening until here. And one more thing before we part. Our next episode is going to be the episode 300. We will be celebrating the 300 episodes of Tandem Nomads, as well as 8 years in business. And most importantly, I will be revealing the new name of the podcast show and my business. Oh my God, I can't believe this is finally coming, and I can't wait to share this moment with you. So stay tuned. But also, if you want to come and join me and celebrate with me in a virtual party, please sign up to my newsletter that you'll find in the show notes so that you can have all the information and sign up to the virtual party. I hope to see you there. And don't forget, stay tuned to turn your challenges into great opportunities.